even before the media saturation really began, a number of Bostonians were already starting to question the extensive coverage being given the case. Was it just because the victims were affluent, they asked? Was it just because the crime happened in the inner city? Was it, shades of Elisa's accusations, just because they were white? The Globe, as a good newspaper was required to do, addressed some of these questions. But the story by staff reporter Eileen McNamara was relegated to the Metro section in the back of the newspaper. The front page was reserved for developments in the investigation. "When tragedy is measured by race, class," read the headline on McNamara's piece. The text carried the thought further. Elements of race and class had many in Greater Boston debating yesterday why some tragedies loom larger than others, why some lives violently lost bring demands for the death penalty and others yield only private familial grief. McNamara pointed out how, in contrast with the publicity over the attack against Chuck and Carol, the murder of a black man in a nearby neighborhood a few hours later rated 0 on the attention scale. There were no cameras clicking, no mini-cams rolling at the city morgue when Sandra Williams identified the body of the man who shared her apartment, McNamara wrote. No news conferences were convened to mark a lone black man's passing. The reporter then quoted a bitter Sandra Williams. "No mayor called about my loss." The story also quoted the photo editor at the competing Herald, Kevin Cole, who said he had been besieged with complaints about the newspaper's decision to print a picture of Chuck and Carol slumped on the front seat of their Toyota, a picture that later would be shown around the world. But Cole said he'd got no calls when a few days previously the newspaper had printed a picture of a 15-year-old black boy who had been shot dead while riding his bicycle. Ben Haith, identified as a community activist, said the media responded, as it should have, when an 11-year-old black girl named Darlene Tiffany Moore was shot to death in a crossfire in Roxbury a year earlier. But for most crimes, he added, if the victim is white, there seems to be a big difference. For example, he asked rhetorically, where were the media more recently when members of a black gang shot up a black revival center during a service? McNamara pointed out that the Stuart case was not the first instance where the media's motives were questioned. In 1976, the story asked, did the media underplay an incident in which a white man was beaten by blacks because it came at a time of high racial tension? By the same token, did news reports overplay an assault on a black lawyer who was stabbed with an American flag on City Hall Plaza? And how about cases involving the slaying of a Harvard football star who was killed in a district known as the Combat Zone in 1977? And the rape and murder of a white nurse by 2 black men in 1981. In the end, McNamara concluded, no one had any answers. But even if the Stuart shootings were hyped, said Haith, it may prove worth it in the long run if it spurred officials into action to help stop the spread of drugs.